best thing I can do is give this person some sort of context, and it'll tell us why the crime was committed, i.e. motive.
I think the chemistry is telling us that this person is playing a very careful political and religious game.
And you think there's all this political upheaval going on in ancient Egypt, and it's encapsulated in a tiny sample the size of a pinhead.
Just because they're 3,000 years old doesn't mean that we can't apply modern forensics and come up with good answers.
I'm far from convinced that's going to be an easy job.
It feels like it's doing more damage, if you see what I mean.
This is a really exciting find and a brilliant result for this sort of experimental archaeology.
In Bolton Museum in the north of England lies a unique mummy, partially unwrapped, yet spectacularly preserved after 3 millennia. Her identity shrouded in mystery, her cause of death lost to history.
This is a great mummy, fantastic preservation.
The coffin and mummy are probably our two most popular pieces in the Egyptian gallery, and you can see why.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a beautiful coffin. A number of people have studied it in great detail. We know it's a very fine example of its period. We know who it was made for and what the owner was.
Yeah, there's a lovely image there of the person it was made for, obviously a lady of very high status in her fine linen robes and lovely wig.
Yeah, and you can see she's making an offering to a deity, and then here on a panel of inscription you've got her name and title. She's the lady of the house, the chantress of Amun-Re, king of the gods, and here's her name, Tau-Henut. So we know who she was and what she did.
One thing I have noticed, it does seem to be an incredibly tight fit for the person within. So I'd be a little concerned that when this was actually completely wrapped, I can't see how this person would have fitted inside this coffin.
You can really see where the shoulders are brushing against the sides of the coffin. The mummy, as you say, would have been a good deal fatter when it was intact.
There's definitely something suspicious here. We need to get the mummy out so we can have a good look.
Dr. Joanne Fletcher's mission is to take this misfit mummy, bring it to life, and then find out how that life came to its end. She is one of Britain's foremost Egyptologists and a world authority on mummies. The grime of centuries could hide any number of secrets from a casual observer, but Joanne is anything but casual.
Beautifully preserved earlobe, absolutely superb. And the teeth are really quite extraordinary because although there's some chipping there, what you're actually seeing very distinctly here is an overjet of the upper set of teeth, which is a very unusual feature.
The initial physical inspection is crucial. In her work, the tiniest details often provide the vital clue as to how someone lived or died. Together with her team of elite scientists, Dr. Fletcher has investigated mummies on almost every continent. This is going to be a tough case for the mummy investigation team. Dr. Stephen Buckley is one of the world's top archaeological chemists. He uses cutting-edge techniques from the world of chemical research to identify substances in, on, and around mummies. Duncan Lees is a forensic archaeologist specializing in high-tech survey techniques. His forensic expertise means he's called in to investigate modern crime scenes all over the world. Jill Scott is an Egyptologist and an expert in the preservation and conservation of mummies. Her research skills and wealth of archaeological knowledge make her perfect as the team's archive and background researcher for the investigation. The challenge is now on. The team may have the tools of modern forensics, but with little information to go on, they'll need all their investigative skills to unlock this ancient mystery. Dr. Fletcher's briefing gives the team a starting point for the investigation.
The coffin apparently has been studied by quite a lot of academics over the years. They know plenty about the woman it was made for. You can see it's beautiful colours. This is the lady herself. She was a priestess. So you can imagine this in its complete state. There is no way that body would have fitted originally into this coffin.
It seems to fit into me. I mean, it's in there.
Yeah, but you can see it here. I mean, where the body's gone into the coffin, particularly around the shoulder region, it's taken off paint down the side of the coffin where it's been squeezed in.
Egyptian mummies were generally very well wrapped. We've got documented evidence of, up to 250 square metres of linen wrappings being used on these individuals.
The mummy's size is a clear sign that something's not right, but the team is going to need more to go on to have a chance of cracking the case.
There's a distinct facial feature there of overjet.
A what?
It's almost like buck teeth,
All right.
in which you have the upper set of teeth protruding very much over the bottom set. Now, this is potentially quite an intriguing find because we know from the evidence that's already been collected that the royals, the royal mummies, the pharaohs of the New Kingdom, also shared this distinct characteristic.
For the ancient Egyptians, everything connected with death was significant. If the team's going to find out who she was and how she died, they can't afford to leave any stone unturned. One tiny mark on the mummy's face could be the key to the story.
I think for me it's the pockmarking on the skin, whether this is embalming to do with the mummification or whether it's something else.
Or just bad skin.
Well, hasn't it been suggested that the mummy of Ramesses V had smallpox because he's got these pustules on his face?
That's true, but the science wasn't particularly convincing.
The next step in the investigation will be critical. The 3,000-year-old mummy is priceless and incredibly delicate. If the team put a foot wrong while they're gathering evidence, they could destroy the very clues they're looking for. Any human contact could contaminate the chemical evidence, so Stephen Buckley takes his samples first. Every substance has its unique chemical fingerprint. Stephen's analysis of embalming materials can yield clues about ancient trade routes, religious strife, and even the politics of ancient Egypt. The combinations of ingredients used for embalming vary enormously over the thousands of years of Egyptian history, and identifying the chemical mix in a particular case can help pinpoint a date. If Stephen can identify the individual chemicals present in these samples, the specific combinations could have a symbolic significance that will tell us about the mummy's life and death. The chemical analysis will take days, if not weeks, to process. The next move is down to Dr. Fletcher. She calls in some specialist help to examine the pictograms that cover the side of the coffin. Could hieroglyphics expert Alan Fildes reveal vital information for the team?
So, Alan, what do you make of these particular hieroglyphs?
21st dynasty.
Yeah.
You can tell by the yellow and the orange. We have Nebet Per, again, lady of the house, a chantress of Amun-Ra.
So
Who
she's
sung before the gods and played instruments for the gods in the temple. A very high status
presumably
lady.
at Karnak, quite
Absolutely.
possibly. Karnak temple, she'd be sort of a regular performer before
Absolutely.
the gods.
There's an interesting story here, isn't there?
Nearly every detail of the mummy's life is apparently recorded on the coffin. She was a singer, probably at one of Egypt's greatest temples, Karnak, participating in rituals with a sacred rattle called a sistrum. It's a great start for the investigation.
But we've certainly got plenty of clues to go
absolutely.
on. All the elements are there, we've just got to put them together and try and make sense of it all.
Another mystery upon us. But a lovely piece of work.
The title written on the coffin, Chantress of Amun was just as much a badge of social prominence as a job description. Chantresses would be high-class women who would spend 1 month in 3 assisting at temple ceremonies. In ancient Egypt, the temples were highly restricted, and jobs that provided access to them were reserved for the elite of Egyptian society. The hieroglyphs have given Joanne a wealth of information about the mummy, but shed no light on the cause of death. In search of a breakthrough, Joanne has brought in some heavyweight help. Paleopathologist Professor Don Brothwell has an international reputation that extends far beyond the world of archaeology. His investigations of everything from mass murders to Danish bog bodies have made him a world authority. With the help of a full-body X-ray scan, Don will be able to see beneath the mummy's ancient skin and the wrappings that cover her lower body to identify any injuries that could relate to her cause of death.
And here the bottom of the spine is seen. And there seems to be some material inside the abdomen here, doesn't there? What exactly might be revealed later on. The upper teeth are very projected in front of the lower teeth, so you have a rather sort of prominent upper teeth in the jaw. And the wear on the teeth suggests to me that's not particularly marked.
The fact that Don's dental inspection has revealed very little wear on the teeth means the mummy must have enjoyed a high-status diet of soft food and been less than 30 years old at the time of her death. This young woman was struck down in the prime of her life.
We have something at the back of the skull which looks as if we have a deposit at the back, either something pushed into the skull through the nasal area, through the nose. Right, can we move on to the thigh? Not a particularly large head of the femur, which isn't a very masculine feature, but combined with the pelvic detail, I would say this is a fairly slenderly built male.
This bombshell that the mummy is actually male means the team will have to rethink all their assumptions.
Steve, interesting results. We've done these digital X-rays, and what we find in the skull and in the pelvis is very definite evidence that this is a male, not female.
Right.
There's enough information from the detail of the skull, things like the frontal sinuses and parts of the pelvis, which indicates, the sex of the individual. I'm absolutely sure this is male.
Right. So interesting puzzle.
Don's search for the mummy's cause of death has totally transformed its identity. The fact that it's male, not female, helps explain why it doesn't fit in the coffin. But if this isn't the coffin's original occupant, all of the information from the casket's inscriptions is irrelevant. The investigation is almost back to square one. The team needs a fresh start. Egyptologist Jill Scott wants to find out if modern dental medicine can tell us anything about the mummy. So she tracks down orthodontic consultant Jay Kinderlin.
Well, the mummy demonstrates a combination of both prominence of the upper front teeth and also an element of what we would call mandibular retrusion. So the lower jaw is actually set back in relation to the rest of the face.
The unusual combination of these two facial deformities would have made life difficult.
I think the main issue would have been one of eating food. The mummy may not have been able to bite into an apple normally, or if they had sandwiches in Egyptian times, they may not have been able to bite a sandwich properly. The mummy probably would have had to chop up the food to put in separately.
And what about speaking?
Absolutely. I mean, there are many sounds, including plosive sounds, where you would put your lips together to make the necessary noise. Our mummy really wouldn't have been able to function in that way, and lisping would have been a real problem.
A picture is emerging of an individual beset by problems. A young man with trouble eating, speaking, everyday things that we take for granted. But while his distinctive teeth were troublesome, could his condition also be a sign that he wasn't as unlucky as he's beginning to appear? A family album of ancient Egyptian pharaohs hints at a possible royal connection.
And there is the supposition here that these people were all related.
So it tends to run in families, so the mummy's parents probably would have had a similar facial profile, and it would be passed down from one generation to the next. We have patients referred who maybe 11, 12, 13 years of age, and often as their parents walk through the door with the patients, you can see really how the children are going to turn out in later life.
Right, without treatment, obviously.
Absolutely. I mean, it is very possible that the mummy and these other individuals have come from the same genetic stock, if you like. But those features alone wouldn't really point you to the fact they were definitely related. What you really need to do is get into something like three-dimensional facial reconstruction, so you can see what the face is like in all planes of space.
The dental evidence suggests the mummy could be related to royalty, but it's going to take facial reconstruction and further investigations to confirm that. A picture of the mummy is building up, but the team's no closer to discovering how he died. Joanne calls a meeting. With his textbook knowledge of ancient diseases, Professor Don Brothwell could help pin down the mummy's cause of death.
What do you think about this sort of marking on the face? It's quite a suspicious looking thing, isn't it?
I mean, it does look like a rash, doesn't it?
Well, that's interesting because quite a few Egyptologists, when they see these features on mummies, have sort of raised the question, is it smallpox? Is it evidence for some sort of killer disease?
Smallpox was a massive killer in the ancient world, responsible for millions of deaths worldwide. Victims of smallpox are covered with pustules that break off to leave ugly scarring, resembling the marks on the mummy's face. With no known cure, a diagnosis of smallpox was a death sentence until the disease was almost eradicated by vaccination in the last 100 years. Don's vast knowledge of human remains enables him to make a quick judgment.
My guess is it's post-mortem. It extends on to only regions of the body. And I've seen the same kind of thing in bog bodies, for instance. And again, I think it's post-mortem.
The most likely explanation for the marks on the mummy's face is drying out of the skin during the embalming process. With the killer disease eliminated as a cause of death, the team turns to in-depth analysis of the X-ray results for answers.
The brain box is obviously empty except for what looks like a deposit at the back of the head. And are those little fragments there due to the damage when the whatever metal implement it was driven in?
I think that explains this sort of area of, is it bone, is it loose bone? Because I was interested in cross-referencing with the sort of X-rays of Tutankhamun, the most famous ancient Egyptian of them all. Yes. But you also have what appears to be a kind of bone fragment, which for many years was regarded as a cause of death. You know, this bash on the head, was King Tut murdered and all that. Right. So I'm interested on your thoughts on that little tiny fragment there.
Bone fragments in the brain cavity could be evidence of foul play. Are they signs of a blow to the head, like the one thought by many to have killed King Tutankhamun? Or are they just a byproduct of the mummification process?
So, Don, do you think to try and work out exactly what's going on this X-ray image, we ought to undertake some form of experiment?
Yeah, I think it'd be well worthwhile. As long as you don't call me in.
A lot of force is going to be needed, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Duncan? Can we just have a word about
I'm
that?
not entirely happy with the way this is going, judging by the conversation that's been happening.
Well, I think we need somebody with a fair amount of strength on this one. It's trying to recreate what we're seeing on the X-ray here. We know that the brain was removed by some sort of force up through the nose with a metal tool, and then the brain was taken out.
So what we're trying to do is recreate the sort of damage that you're getting within the human skull in an experimental way.
Well, let's wait and see what happens, because I'm far from convinced that's going to be an easy job for you.
If the experiment can produce chips of bone in the skull, it could be a major step in the investigation. But replicating a 3,000-year-old brain removal process will be easier said than done. The removal of the brain was just one stage of mummification. For an ancient Egyptian, the preservation of their body after death was the key to eternal life. So tremendous importance was attached to every aspect of the embalming process. To prevent decay, the main internal organs, other than the heart and kidneys, were removed and stored separately. Removing the organs without damaging the rest of the body required tremendous skill on the part of the embalmers. With the experiment underway to try to explain the bone fragments inside the skull, the investigation is making headway. And at the team's state-of-the-art chemical laboratory, Stephen Buckley could be one step closer to finding the mummy's identity. After hours of careful preparation, the first results from Stephen's chemical analysis are starting to come through. GCMS is the gold standard when it comes to identifying organic chemicals. It provides a graphic fingerprint of every chemical compound within a minute sample. That can mean hundreds of substances in a sample the size of a pinhead.
What GCMS allows us to do is to identify components individually from a very complex mixture. There's plenty of components in there, so hopefully some of them will be quite interesting. From what we know so far, certain substances were associated with certain deities. So there's certainly symbolism as well as the practical materials, there's no question of that. I suppose we're really looking for the more minor components that may tell us something about political identity, religious affiliations, trade routes, that sort of thing.
The GCMS machine heats the tiny samples until they turn into gas. The temperature at which substances in the samples vaporize plays a key part in identifying them. Hours later, he has his first breakthrough.
This is a major component in the sample, thymol. There's actually a lot of it in thyme, for example. What it certainly points out already, to me, is that the embalmers knew their stuff, that they were choosing materials that would genuinely have preservative properties, antibacterials. So thymol is quite a powerful antibacterial.
Identifying 3,000-year-old plant residues would be impressive enough, but not for Stephen Buckley. He can even tell you what altitude they grew at.
What we certainly have is a conifer resin. What I'm trying to look for now are markers that suggest a mountain conifer. If conifers are exposed to higher levels of radiation as they are at higher altitude, then they actually give a chemical fingerprint showing that, and that can sometimes give us clues.
The cocktail of expensive embalming ingredients containing a resin from a distant mountain conifer confirms the team's thoughts that the mummy must have been someone very important. It also hints at exactly who this mummy may have been, but that can only emerge after days of painstaking analysis. While Stephen's making progress on the mummy's identity on his own, Joanne's going to need some help to carry out her experiment on the cause of the mummy's skull damage. The fundamentals of metalworking haven't changed for thousands of years. Don Barker is still practicing skills that would be familiar to any ancient medical toolmaker. Egyptian embalming tools were originally made in copper, a soft metal easily bent into shape, but almost as easily broken. Copper was eventually replaced by stronger metals, so they're using authentic ancient designs to make tools in both copper and iron to see if either can produce the kind of bone chips seen in the mummy.
Wow, that's amazing. You can really get a feel for how they might have done it now, you know.
For the whisking process to liquefy the brain for removal, Joanne has another tool made, a long, thin wire that will curve around the inside of the skull.
So yeah, you can see how you could feed it
Yeah.
up the nose.
Yeah.
And then once it's up, then it's like a handle to rotate, isn't it?
Absolutely.
With the replica ancient Egyptian tools complete, everything is set for a hands-on, practical experiment which could determine whether these kinds of implements could have been the cause of the mummy's skull damage. Following the revelation that our mummy is male, Duncan meets facial reconstruction specialist Stephanie Davy-Jow to build a picture of what he may actually have looked like.
So I have a virtual model of the skull here.
Okay.
And what I then do is an analysis of the skull to determine sex, approximate age, as well as ethnic affiliation, if I can determine that.
Right.
With these parameters in place, Stephanie uses data gathered from modern populations to make an estimate of skin depth that she then applies to the model.
I can add eyes. Every person has approximately the same size of eyes, but the placement inside of the eye socket or the orbital is dependent upon the individual. One thing that was interesting that I noticed when reconstructing this individual was the marked asymmetry in his orbitals. His eyes aren't even.
Like the deformed jaw, the asymmetric eyes are another characteristic of some 18th and 19th dynasty Egyptian royalty. As the pieces come together, the mummy's looks seem to become more and more extraordinary.
And you'll notice too in the profile, you can see he's got quite a receding chin, coupled with the overjet, and he's got a convex nose. So he's got kind of a beaky nose and a receding chin.
You're not building up a very good picture of what this guy's going to look like.
I build it as I
Distinctive.
see it. Yes.
Distinctive, but yeah, can't hide from the facts.
As the dental evidence suggests, the mummy was a young man with a whole host of problems.
And next, I can begin to build the overlying skin surface using the information from the tissue depths and the muscles and the shape of the skull. And you can begin to see what he looked like.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it? He's certainly, choose my words carefully, distinctive, isn't he?
He is. Yes. I don't think he'd make any modern magazine covers.
No.
But
With a forensically accurate picture of the mummy, the investigation gains new impetus. The team are no longer dealing with desiccated remains, but a human being whose cause of death remains unknown. Duncan and Joanne are poised to conduct the experiment that should help decide whether the mummy was killed by a blow to the head or whether the bone chips in the skull are the product of embalming. With human volunteers in short supply, the team have to compromise.
In our case, we have to use a sheep's head, but in many ways, the sheep and the human, in terms of size, the size of the brain, etc., they are quite similar, aren't they?
The ancient Egyptians believed the heart was the centre for thought and emotion, so they were unsentimental about removing the brain to stave off the decomposition process.
But with this, the idea was that it was forced up inside the nose, broke the top of the nasal bone, and then the brain inside kind of whisked, liquefied in effect, and then it could be drained out back down the nose.
So, time for a tap.
Absolutely.
Horribly easy.
Just a few minutes into the experiment, the team suffer a setback.
Now look, it's bending.
And that's exactly what the blacksmith said would happen.
If we mark how far it's gone up, that must have gone through into the cavity, and it's bent around.
With the copper tool out of action, Duncan is going to have to use a more modern iron version to stand any chance of recreating the damage in the mummy's skull.
It's much tougher and hasn't bent around the skull cavity, but has definitely gone through it. In fact, I'm probably not going to be able to take this out again now.
Hence the damage to
Hey,
the...
now look.
Oh, no, that's lovely, look at that.
And these are fantastic because this is exactly... I wouldn't be able to extract all of these with the hook. I don't think I could pull all of the brain out.
Chunks of brain tissue are a good start, but bone fragments remain elusive. Egyptian embalmers could remove a brain by liquidizing it in as little as 20 minutes. If Duncan can't produce bone chips in this time with the more destructive iron tool, the test must be considered a failure.
So the 20 minutes is up, Duncan, so how's it gone?
Look, I can't actually quite believe I'm saying this, but it's been incredibly interesting. I mean, what I've been able to do is extract actually quite a lot of the brain tissue here using both the smaller and thinner whippier action, but also with the heavy-duty tool as well. Material has been coming out, but what's interesting me most of all is that within this material there are chips of bone, really very clear shards of bone.
That's exactly what we were seeing on the X-rays of the Bolton mummy.
I'll just take the skull and tip it up here and see whether we get anything
coming out through the nasal cavity. I have spent a long, it's a good 20 minutes and violently moving the instruments around, but what we get is a big fat zero, absolutely nothing.
The brain may not have completely liquidized in 20 minutes, but the experiment is still a major boost for the investigation. The brain removal process has produced visible chips of bone. With the embalming procedure itself clearly capable of causing this damage, there's just no reason to suppose that our mummy was hit on the head. It must be ruled out of the investigation. With one cause of death eliminated, the team are making real progress. Now, some hard work in the lab is uncovering exciting developments in the quest for the mummy's identity. Remnants of cloth from the mummy's wrappings contain telltale evidence.
Certainly one of the things that struck me particularly when I was looking at the actual mummy in Bolton, the very sort of fine quality of this linen, because quite a lot of mummies, Egyptian mummies certainly, are wrapped in quite often quite coarse material, often reused, recycled, even amongst sort of what you call the middle classes, I guess. But with this one, it's really fine stuff, the finest quality.
Definitely.
And it's almost as if the linen's been applied, a little bit like papier-mâché. It's been applied in a thin layer and then coated in something, and then another layer of wrapping applied and another layer of coating. So I'd really be interested to see if the coating's applied on each layer, and certainly at different areas of the body. There's plenty to sort of go on here, isn't there? There's a lot of interesting things at play, I think.
Joanne's examination of the fabric confirms the team's first instincts that the mummy is someone very high class. But the results of Steve's chemical analysis promise dramatic new developments.
The chemistry is actually looking quite interesting. We've got a lot of thymol, which is something that occurs in thyme, for example. What we've also got with this triterpenoid resin is pistachia.
Well, that's a very distinctive chemical fingerprint, all those ingredients put together.
To some extent, it's a royal marker. So I think it suggests this was someone of note, given the amount that's being used.
The pistachia shrub, prized for its sweet-smelling resin, was used almost exclusively for embalming members of Egyptian royalty during the era of the New Kingdom. Suddenly, the notion that our mummy is of royal descent has gone from an intriguing idea to a definite possibility. But Stephen has even more surprises up his sleeve.
What's also interesting, curious initially, was the fact we actually have a division. So a line has been drawn through the mummy, if you like. The left side suggests sheep, possibly goat. With the right side, he's got cow or bull.
One half of the mummy's upper body was covered in sheep fat, the other in cow fat, each substance symbolically linked to rival Egyptian gods.
Sheep or goat, so the sacred ram of a moon, represented the sort of grand traditions of the ancient Egyptians. But then he's sort of playing both sides, isn't he? If he's sort of showing evidence of the sort of cow fat, sort of bovine material. Yeah. He's got this link to the Hathor, the bovine goddess, linked to the sun.
It's an incredible discovery. By analysing tiny drops of fat taken from both sides of the body, Stephen Buckley has opened up a dramatic chapter of Egyptian history. Egypt in 1250 BC was politically divided between north and south. Hathor, the cow, was daughter of the ancient sun god Ra, a symbol of the north, favoured by priests who were loyal to the pharaoh. The god Amun, represented by a ram, was the chief deity of the powerful priests who dominated the south.
I think the chemistry is telling us that this person is playing a very careful political and religious game. He wants to get the balance right. He's actually showing that he's pro-moon and pro-Ra.
When you think there's all this political upheaval going on in ancient Egypt and it's encapsulated in a tiny sample the size of a pinhead.
If the mummy was performing this delicate political and religious balancing act in death, it narrows down the possibilities of who they were in life.
So on the basis of this amazing data, are we able to sort of try and pinpoint more precisely who this person may or may not be?
I think for me, from the chemistry and the mummification evidence that we have, it suggests a possible Ramesses II connection.
With the shaven head, that's an interesting one because, of course, it's a clear mark of a priest.
In isolation, the mummy's lack of hair wouldn't be significant, but combined with all the other evidence of his status, his distinctive facial features, and the religious importance of his embalming materials, it's a key indicator of his identity.
Then potentially we're looking at one of the royal sons of one of the pharaohs.
The chemistry suggests this mummy was rich and important, a prince of the royal house, a priest, and a political player in one of the most turbulent periods in Egyptian history. The incredible 66-year reign of Ramesses II was an exciting time to be alive in ancient Egypt. Led by its extravagant king, the Egyptian empire expanded dramatically before slowly tumbling into economic decline. Ramesses was responsible for building some of the most spectacular monuments in ancient Egypt, many of which survive today. The temple complexes at Karnak and the Ramesseum forever pay silent tribute to an era of great achievements and great political intrigue. The teeth, the eyes, the chemistry, and the shaven head all point to one identity. Of the hundreds of children that Ramesses II fathered, many would be sent into the priesthood, where they could enjoy some of the most powerful and privileged positions in Egyptian society. From within their magnificent temples, the priesthood could exert control over every aspect of Egyptian life. The team are managing to put together an extraordinary picture of who this mummy was in life, but they're no closer to knowing how he died. For an answer to this vital question, they'll need some high-tech assistance. A CAT scan, computer-assisted tomography, uses a series of X-rays to build a 3D image of the body. Hundreds of images taken from 360 degrees around the body are combined to build the picture. With this state-of-the-art imaging device, paleopathologist Don Brothwell can find traces of injury or illness in the ancient mummy that would elude a normal X-ray.
What we're hoping to find here is any evidence of abnormality, so we ought really to look particularly to see whether we can find any incision.
If they find an oblique embalming incision, it'll place the mummy in Egypt's 18th dynasty, and everything the team has discovered would be thrown into question again. If the incision is vertical, the mummy would be tied to the 19th dynasty, the time of Ramesses II.
Is that a cut?
That area, I'm just trying to compare it to the other side.
During embalming, the organs would be removed through a single cut in the abdomen. After mummification, it would generally be tightly stitched, making the incision very thin and hard to find.
It's the left-hand side where we should be finding the incision, right? No, remember, it will be stitched up.
The skill of the Egyptian embalmers makes it a difficult search, but eventually they find it. It's a vertical incision. The discovery of the incision puts the mummy squarely in the time of Ramesses II, but further investigation will be needed to identify how the mummy died.
But obviously, if we really are going to try and find the cause of death, we need to work over every image very carefully.
Back in York, detailed analysis of the CT scans has uncovered a surprise hidden beneath the mummy's wrappings.
Aha. This is a man.
So we're coming down now into the pelvis. Can you see we're beginning to get a separate structure showing up there beyond the abdomen? And I'm fairly sure we're seeing sections of the penis there. So it's man, all right?
That looks very, very sort of dense.
Yeah.
It looks like it's been quite well wrapped.
Well, it's been well prepared for death and the next life, I suppose.
For sure.
But what puzzles me is I can't see any evidence of a scrotum or testicles.
The embalmers have taken great care to leave the mummy well prepared for the afterlife, but their preparations have left us with a puzzle.
We're dealing with a sort of section through the arm about here. Look how tight the skin is. Again, we seem to be dealing with a body with not very much tissue around the bone.
It does look very high status, a member of the elite, and you'd imagine had a very, very high status diet. If there is this evidence of sort of potential emaciation, does that suggest this individual was undernourished?
Well, it could be a disease, couldn't it? Or the alternative is a cancer. So could it be that that's causing this?
Cancer can cause dramatic weight loss irrespective of diet. Just like today, it was a problem for the ancient Egyptians, even for young men in the prime of life, like the mummy.
There's no good evidence of growths or erosions into tissue which suggest to me that it is, you know, that you've got secondary cancers.
So no tumours or anything?
No tumour evidence there at all, except for the thinness of the body. We might, of course, be dealing with a body where the actual tumourous tissue has been removed by the embalmers.
Yeah, it's quite possible, given how skilled they were.
Yeah, that's right.
While the mummy's body shows signs of cancer, the cancerous tissue itself, like the mummy's scrotum, is mysteriously absent. Could these two absences be linked? Today, testicular cancer is relatively rare, but it can still be deadly. 3,000 years ago, it was even deadlier. The problem might be diagnosed, but was impossible to treat. When a cancer sufferer died, the embalmers were known to remove ugly cancerous growths so that their bodies were again perfect for the afterlife. The mummies of Ramesses II and his son Meneptah both had their testicles removed. Whether this is evidence of a hereditary vulnerability to cancer or simply a family mummification tradition is hard to say. But crucially, the scans have raised a real possibility for how the mummy died. At Bolton Museum, Don Brothwell joins Stephen Buckley in trying an old technique that could fill out the final branch of the mummy's family tree. Facial reconstruction has brought to life the mummy's extraordinary features, but to prove that they are a family trait, another test is needed. The facial features that determine a person's looks can be scientifically measured and compared with craniofacial measurements of family members. The proportions of the nose and chin can be just as distinctive as fingerprints.
What I've seen is some interesting patterns in the royal mummies. And there's some hints at possible similarities here, so it's a question of what we can get out of that by getting accurate measurements here.
Accuracy in these measurements is absolutely essential. The tiniest mistake could render the result meaningless.
Upper facial height would be nice,
that's
but
a problem, isn't it?
That's right. The lip is obscuring the and preventing us getting an accurate measurement. So I think perhaps the X-rays might provide an accurate measurement there, I think.
Yeah.
Craniofacial measurements can be taken from a human body or from X-rays. It's an old technique dating back to the 19th century. Nowadays, it's rarely used in modern criminal investigations where DNA has become the single most important tool in positively identifying individuals. But DNA is vulnerable to extremes of temperature and is almost certain to have been destroyed by heat, time, and the substances used in embalming. For ancient artifacts like Egyptian mummies, craniofacial measurement will always stand the test of time. Back in York, the final piece of the jigsaw is almost in place. However accurate Stephen's measurements are, they mean nothing on their own. To prove scientifically that this mummy is related to Ramesses II, the statistics must be compared with data gathered from Egyptian royal mummies, including Ramesses himself.
I looked at all the royal mummies that we have from the New Kingdom. The one that stands out as being most similar to ours is Ramesses II. Of these 6 key measurements, 4 of them are virtually identical.
With Ramesses II?
Yes, with Ramesses II.
The link between these two mummies is not just statistical. The resemblance is more than skin deep.
Here's the X-ray of Ramesses II.
That is so similar. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at the nose.
The degree of overjet, the angle.
And the chin. That is such a distinctive
yes,
chin.
the jaw, the Ramesses jaw.
The mummy differs significantly from Ramesses II in only 2 measurements. Surprisingly, these 2 rogue statistics actually reinforce the mummy's link to Ramesses through his father, Seti.
Other than these couple of measurements here where it's Seti I, who, as we know, was Ramesses II's father.
Yeah.
So that will be expected from father to son, and then our individual. That's amazing. That's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah.
The mystery of the mummy's identity appears to be solved at last. He's almost certainly a blood relative of one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs.
What we find in the skull and in the pelvis is very definite evidence that this is a male.
I mean, it is very possible that the mummy and these other individuals have come from the same genetic stock, if you like.
I think the chemistry is telling us that this person is playing a very careful political and religious game.
That is so similar. Look at that.
Or it could be a disease, couldn't it? Or the alternative is a cancer.
After weeks of intense work, the investigation has yielded discoveries no one could have anticipated.
To come to the point we have, as in a relative of Ramesses II, is quite mind-blowing.
Any one of those pieces of information, if we hadn't had it, if we hadn't found it, could have taken us in a completely different direction.
For me, we just let the science do the talking.
Yeah.
It speaks for itself.
For this mummy, the science speaks volumes. Contrary to the inscriptions on the casket, this mummy is male, switched into the casket either in Egypt or during his long journey to Britain and Bolton Museum. The team's painstaking work has painted a picture of a fascinating life and suggested that the mummy could have died of cancer while still young.
So basically this person had a life of wanting for absolutely nothing, which makes, the manner of his death such an irony, doesn't it?
As Don flagged up, it certainly appears to be some sort of wasting disease, possibly even cancer. I mean, that's a tragic irony.
This rich, powerful man, who should have enjoyed a comfortable existence at the pinnacle of Egyptian society, was perhaps humbled by a condition that respects neither wealth nor power, and still haunts us today.
Every time we look at the mummies, look at the bodies, it's not an object in space and time. It's not I don't understand them because this is a statist individual. You connect on a very human way.
We aren't looking at just some artefact in a museum. This is a living, breathing human being that people once loved and once cared for.
They had the same fears that we did and felt the same pain that we did.
I think that's why it's nice that we've gone some way to giving him his identity back.
The idea of gaining immortality through mummification might seem strange to us, but in a very real sense, this mummy's embalmers succeeded in their task. Their careful work has ensured that his memory and his identity will endure for thousands of years beyond his death.
Somebody here wants this lady to suffer for the rest of eternity.
We may have a crime here, but we've got no body.
Certainly a puzzle, and possibly suggests something a little sinister.
There's so many suspicious elements to this story, it's really giving me cause for concern.
It would just be a world of pain.
Mummification, the preservation of dead bodies, became more than a science in ancient Egypt. It developed into a sacred ritual. No other people in history devoted so much time and expense to ensuring a safe passage into the eternal afterlife with their body intact. The skill of Egypt's master embalmers was phenomenal. Thousands of years ago, they worked to halt the ravages of time on lifeless corpses. Today, forensic technology can unlock that person's secrets to reveal the intimate story of their life and death. Over 2,000 miles from Egypt, in a museum in the north of England, lies the beautifully preserved coffin of an Egyptian mummy. But the body inside remains a mystery. The workmanship and sophistication of this coffin suggest that it would have taken weeks, if not months, to create. To be worthy of this top-of-the-range casket, its owner must surely have been a VIP. Dr. Joanne Fletcher is a renowned Egyptologist who's done excavation work and mummy investigations around the world. She's been called in to try and unlock the secrets of this hidden mummy.
It came into this country a couple of hundred years ago, and rather than going to the British Museum or another major institution, it came up here to Newcastle.
Well, it's obviously an Egyptian mummy covering. It's obviously female from the exterior at least. So I'd be quite interested to sort of try and find out more about this individual inside. So I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing the mummy.
I'm afraid we can't do that. We really can't open this up because we're worried about damaging this beautiful object.
So is she completely sealed?
Yes, she is.
There's no small openings that we could take any samples or anything, no?
It's completely sealed.
Yeah. Yes, this is going to be quite a challenge, I think. First and foremost, what I'd really like to do is take a series of photographs from every angle, pretty much, so I can then go back to talk with the team in York and try and plan some sort of strategy, see what techniques we can bring to bear to study this, this very enigmatic and fascinating mummy.
This sealed coffin may be an exquisite work of art, but it's also an ancient mystery, thousands of years in the making. Joanne's already nicknamed the hidden mummy the Lady. And piece by piece, she and the team will have to fill in all the details of who she was, where she's from, and how she met her end. This case will be a massive challenge for the mummy investigation team, given the coffin is sealed and they will never be able to see or touch the mummy within. The team are among the best in their field, but even for them, the task would probably be impossible, except for one thing. 2 years ago, for conservation purposes, the museum had the mummy CT scanned. Computed axial tomography is an advanced form of the conventional X-ray. Instead of revealing the outline of bones and organs, the CT scan forms a full three-dimensional computer model of the human body. This medical blueprint of the lady will allow the team to analyze specific areas of the body in great detail. The forensic data will be a priceless tool for the team as they try to uncover how this woman lived and how she died. Dr. Stephen Buckley has an international reputation for his chemical analysis of mummified bodies. His unique experience may unlock a vital clue on this mysterious coffin.
Well, from the chemistry, it's certainly possible that some sort of concealment was going on.
Egyptologist Jill Scott's specialist knowledge in ancient human remains will be crucial in unravelling the real story of how this mummy died.
Injuries like that I would expect to be lower down. It is very high up.
And Duncan Lees, who offers forensic support to criminal investigations all over the UK, is going to bring modern detective techniques to the case of this Egyptian mummy.
Just because they're 3,000 years old doesn't mean that we can't apply modern forensics and come up with good answers.
The lady, like every case, begins with a team briefing here in the incident room at the University of York. Joanne begins with the bad news.
We aren't allowed to take this covering off. We aren't allowed to do any physical sampling with this. There is no way into this mummy.
The team gets straight into analysing the CT scan data.
What interests me here is this, this sort of package, which I'm guessing is part of the embalming process, the modification, internal organs wrapped in there.
But there is a lot that we can do. I mean, using technology that Stephen will be applying as well, that looks through the coffin, looks into the interior, and builds up still three-dimensional information that will be a good starting point for us to create a virtual reality person.
The whole premise with this one is it's a completely, hands-off zone. We're not allowed to touch. But using this technology to penetrate through the wrappings, through the coffin, we can hopefully then, really bring this woman back to life.
The team have state-of-the-art forensic technology like a CT scan at their disposal. But if they're going to unlock the secrets of this sealed coffin, they'll have to do so with absolutely no access to the body within. To get things started, they're going back to basics. Jill Scott is hard at work. She's already unearthed the museum's acquisition records and has discovered that back in the 1820s, when the coffin of this mummy first came into the country, it was opened at the base by the feet. The damage that was done during this operation is one reason why the museum insists the coffin must now remain sealed. Further analysis of the records reveals details that will help them build a profile of the mummy.
What we appear to have is a mummy dating from the 21st, 22nd dynasty. So we're looking around 1070 to 900 BC as a sort of rough date there.
The records state that the name of this mummy is Bakht Hornat, which means servant of Horus the Strong, which makes sense as a name for an Egyptian female.
And what we also have is a location. We have it mentioned here that she was found in a tomb at Gurna in Thebes, which is a really interesting place.
Set along both sides of the River Nile, near the modern city of Luxor, lies the ancient city of Thebes. It was for a while prominent as a royal residence, the capital city, and the religious heart of Egypt. It contained the necropolis in the Valley of the Kings and numerous funerary temples such as the Ramesseum, built by Ramesses II. But for all its architectural splendour, Thebes was at the centre of a bitter rivalry that had split ancient Egypt in two.
The south around Thebes is entirely controlled by the priests. So you've got these elite priest kings, these powerful dynasts that control the whole area. So whoever Our Lady was, she was very much under the thumb of these priests, both on a religious and I'd say a political level.
And I think the thing that interests me most of all is this Mona Lisa type smile to her, really enigmatic, and it kind of makes you wonder what's actually going on underneath this coffin lay. What is she hiding?
In order to find out more about the lady, the team need to establish what she looked like in life. But with her body sealed in a coffin, this won't be easy. They've brought in an expert in cranial facial identification. Steph Davy-Jow uses her expertise on criminal investigations and archaeological cases. Taking the data from the CT scan, her computerized reconstruction model will reveal this woman's face for the first time in thousands of years.
This is a virtual 3D model of her skull. Rather than showing you how she would have looked now, I can show you what she would have looked like at the end of her life.
Steph has identified a number of changes to the woman's facial structure caused by the process of mummification.
Her jaw had been rotated into an open position.
Okay.
And her nasal bones had been broken, likely when they removed her brain.
Okay.
So I rotated the mandible back into its natural position. And I've taken the nasal bones, a bit like pieces of a puzzle. I was able to rotate them back into where they would have been.
Using standard tissue depth markers, Steph is able to accurately recreate the thickness of the skin all over the mummy's face.
The next stage of the process is to add eyes. These are obviously quite important to the final appearance of the face.
All the pieces are beginning to click into place as the face of the mummy is slowly building.
So I've begun to add skin. Essentially, I've built a grid using the tissue depths and the muscles to build the outer features of the face.
Is this a generic sort of mesh that you've attached to the head, or does this built up as a sort of bespoke data set for this individual?
I make it bespoke each time, especially in regions such as the eyes and the lips. It's very personal to the skull beneath.
With the face almost complete, Steph starts to add the finishing touches.
Here's an image rendered of what she looks like without hair.
Okay.
Quite statuesque, I think.
Incredible. Very, well, beautiful and very striking as well. Very strong features.
To build an accurate picture of her hairstyle, Steph has modelled it on the painting of the lady's hair on the outside of the coffin.
And there she is.
That is extraordinary.
This is how she would have appeared on the day that she died. The face of a 3,000-year-old mummy.
The ability to accurately rebuild the face of this Egyptian woman as it was the day she died almost 3,000 years ago is an astonishing achievement for the mummy investigation team. Especially as they've managed to do it without even opening the coffin.
Now that you've finished the reconstruction and spent so long working on it, what clues are hidden away in her face that you've managed to draw out?
Well, you can see she was a quite striking-looking woman. And you can see here she's got quite an extensive overbite. And based on her overbite, we can say with some confidence that she was likely of high status. This has been shown in various research outputs.
An overbite is the vertical overlapping of the upper teeth over the lower teeth. It's a classic facial feature of Egyptian royalty. A physical characteristic dating back to the lineage of pharaohs like Tutankhamun in the 18th dynasty. This important discovery backs up the theory that the mummy was a high-status Egyptian female. The mummy investigation team are among the first people to lay eyes on the lady's facial features in almost 3 millennia. Using museum records, the team has also confirmed her position at the top of Egyptian society, probably originating from the city of Thebes during the 21st to 22nd dynasty. But they are still no closer to working out exactly who she was or how she died. Joanne is hoping that the hieroglyphs on the coffin could provide a vital lead. This ancient writing system contains a combination of symbols and alphabetic elements. Hieroglyphs were an essential component of mummification, as all Egyptian coffins had to correctly display the name of the person inside to ensure a safe passage into the afterlife. They were first deciphered in 1822 by French scholar Jean-François Champollion, who realized that the Rosetta Stone was inscribed with the same text in both Greek and hieroglyphs, an event that gave birth to the science of Egyptology. Alan Fildes specialises in deciphering this ancient Egyptian writing, and his knowledge could unlock the secrets of this sealed coffin. In his analysis of the hieroglyphs, Alan has noticed a series of anomalies. Ever since she was brought to Britain, she's been known as Bacht Hornacht, which means servant of Horus the Strong. But that's not what is actually written on the coffin.
We've got Ba Ke.
Yeah.
Then we've got a very hurried water sign.
It is hurried, isn't it?
Very hurried.
They've not done a zigzag like normal.
Which I'm sure would have been as easy enough to write the water sign as it is to do that line. So we have Baket and Hor,
which translates as simply servant of Horus.
Then I see Nakt, Baket and Hor Nakt.
The word Nakt, meaning strong, is separated from Bacht and Hor by the equivalent of a full stop. This means the name actually reads as Bacht and Hor full stop. Adding a Nakt seems to be a mistake by whoever transcribed it for the museum. For over 200 years, this mummy has been given the wrong name, servant of Horus the Strong, instead of her true name, servant of Horus. Remembering the names of the dead was sacred to ancient Egyptians. They probably valued the afterlife more than any other culture in history. They believed that death was simply a temporary interruption and that eternal life could be ensured by preservation of the physical form through mummification. The pharaohs in particular were so obsessed with the afterlife that they ordered the construction of vast and complex tombs to protect their bodies for this journey into the next world. The 19th century mistranslation of the name is one thing, but the original scribe also seems to have made a mistake.
Everything else is
That's
actually
just it.
spot on.
Everything
It's well
else
done.
does work.
And then we come to the major part of the inscription, and suddenly we send the wrong person. So we can't say with any certainty the name of this lady.
Exactly.
Which means
She
she's in
can't live
limbo.
again.
She can't.
The description of the lady's status, a vital insignia for the afterlife, contains what must be a deliberate error.
This woman is called Lord of the House.
Absolutely.
And she's a lady of the house.
Yep.
She's not a man, she's a woman. So at the top, they've got the sex wrong, which is pretty
It's
fundamental.
maximum to hurt, isn't it? It's the maximum kind of thing you can do to this lady to affect her.
Yeah, it was totally misrepresenting
Yes.
what she was in life.
A gut instinct would be that that somebody didn't want this person to live in the next world. An error so obvious as that, somebody wanted to do mischief. A thing so crucial as a name, a thing that was going to take you and allow you into the next world, a thing that you couldn't live without. No, it's a major error, or has it been done for a reason?
The deliberate misrepresentation of the mummy's title has thrown the case wide open, leading Joanne and Alan to consider who would have wanted to sabotage the lady's passage into the afterlife.
Well, there are a number of suspects, aren't there? So if we list the subjects, we can actually have a look at them. There's the family,
Yeah.
there's the scribes, and there's the priesthood. Could have been any of the three. Let's face it, what percent of Egyptians could read and write in this period?
Exactly,
Maybe
I mean,
2 or 5, 1%.
1%
So a
max.
scribe could get away with that
Yes.
without 98% of people even
Well,
looking
who'd
at it.
know? Who would know what the scribe had written? That begs the question, what's going on inside this cartonnage?
Absolutely.
Symbolic damage was done to the inscription on the lady's coffin. The team now needs to establish whether any physical harm was done to her body. Since they will never see inside the coffin, Duncan has decided to use the images from the CT scan to create a precise model of the mummy's head. Facial reconstruction established what this woman looked like while alive. Now he wants to know what she looks like today, sealed inside her coffin. 3D design specialist David Moore will take data from the CT scan to form a replica model of the mummy's head. Commonly known as rapid prototyping, this state-of-the-art technique will allow the team to turn the digital data into a 3D physical reality.
We have a fundamental problem with this body, David, in that we can't actually see her. We've got this CAT scan data, but we really need a visualization. We really need to sort of look her in the eye if we're going to solve the case.
Well, see, the problem we've got here is 3,000-year-old mummy is a lot of those tissues have sort of absorbed into each other and become attached to the skull and things like that. So what we're really going to have to do is push the boundaries of the software slightly and try and really pick out just the material that we want.
Three-dimensional printers build up the specific design by printing thousands of successive layers. The model is then created by alternating layers of glue and chalk powder. The 3D result is a dimensionally accurate head based on the source data from the CT scan.
If you're observing a real mummy, you have to be so delicate, you know, contamination, everything that goes with that. What you've got here is an exact representation of what's lying within the casket, yet you don't have to be delicate with it. You can slice it in half, see what's inside. In a way, you haven't actually got a body here, you're looking at data.
Continuing to build the profile of the lady, Joanne Fletcher is trying to gain clues from one of the oldest forms of forensic ID that exists: teeth. Dr. Ian MacLeod is a leading dental radiologist who specializes in the analysis of Egyptian mummies.
One of the things we can see straight away, she's got a full set of teeth, including, importantly, her wisdom teeth, the third molars. And in most people, the third molar erupts in your mouth at around the age of about 18. And it takes another sort of 3 years for the roots to completely form. So if we look carefully, we can see these roots are fully formed. Yeah. So automatically we can say this lady's over the age of 21. But if we look at this lady's teeth, you can see that this is the first molar. This erupts around the age of 6. The second molar erupts around the age of 12, and as we've said, the third molar about 18. Once the teeth are in the mouth, they start to wear, and in ancient Egypt, in fact, they probably wore their teeth quite rapidly. And if we look at the top of the teeth there, we can see that's worn quite a lot. This is a little less worn, and this one's worn but not to a huge degree. So putting these sort of facts together, in fact, it gives us an age of around 30 at death.
Life was hard for most people living in ancient Egypt, and the average life expectancy was low. A woman in her mid-40s would be considered elderly. So the fact that the lady was around 30 years old when she died makes it unlikely that she died of old age. Meanwhile, the 3D visualization of the mummy is almost ready. Without even laying a finger on the coffin, Duncan is about to see exactly what the lady's head looks like.
Model's fantastic, isn't it? This is one-to-one scale data, so you're not reduced or changed in any way the dimensions. So she has a very delicate, small head, doesn't she?
Petite, yeah.
It's incredible to be looking into her face. I wonder who the last person she was looking at was.
Thousands of years after her death, The mummy investigation team are trying to piece together how and why this Egyptian woman died. So far, they know her name, her date of origin, and where she lived. And even though she remains sealed in a coffin, the team now has an extraordinary image of what the lady once looked like. They're now reconvening to try to work out their next step.
What we have isn't just a confusion with the name. There's certainly confusion with this woman's job title, the job description. We've got clear evidence of misspelling because these signs should read Nebet Peh, which means lady of the house.
Right.
And quite categorically, that's not what it says. When you look carefully, they've purposefully missed out the feminine T sign. So
they're basically calling her a him.
Exactly. Exactly, and this is categorically wrong. And that's completely contradicting the ancient Egyptian belief systems.
So we've had a good step forward as well with the data from the cloud mapping, from the point cloud data that we've derived from the CT scan. And this is going to be the only chance I think we get to look at her in real life. And here she is.
Stephen is a world authority on mummification techniques. He immediately notices a glaring discrepancy.
What concerns me and I notice is the difference between the fine decorated cartonnage and the state of the face. You see the sort of undulation here.
It's almost like it's blistered or something, isn't it?
Egyptian embalmers were highly sophisticated chemists who developed their art over thousands of years. A good embalmer would have preserved facial features to an incredibly high standard. But the 3D model has revealed the opposite.
It's certainly not what you'd expect of a decent embalmer at this time. There is definitely an inconsistency here,
right?
And I think that's something that needs looking at. Where I would go now with this is to look at the body and to see whether you see it there.
Sure.
The evidence for foul play is building up. The team now need to find a cause of death for the lady. Using a printout of the CT scan, Duncan is consulting Surgeon Commander Mike Edwards, who serves with the British forces. He's seen practically every kind of injury to the human body. Armed with the CT scan data, he may be able to tell what has happened to the lady's body. After careful analysis, Mike is able to answer the question that has remained unknown for 3,000 years: how this woman died.
If we look on the CT scan here, we can see that there is a massive incision or stab wound, whatever you want to call it. It is major, and it's not regular at all. It's ragged and irregular, and it extends very deeply.
We're not talking about the mummification wound, the embalmer's incision here.
No, we're not, because this is more likely to be the embalming incision, because it's in the left loin and left hypochondrial region.
Which is more normal, isn't it?
And it's very neat.
Yeah.
The large wound identified is completely separate from the standard embalming incision, which is also visible on the CT scan. This presents the team with a dramatic development.
I suspect the wound is here.
Okay.
And this extends, if a knife were placed through the abdomen, it would have gone through this small bowel here, large bowel here, maybe even into the liver here and the large vessels at the back of the abdomen.
Why do we think this is a wound from a stabbing rather than, say, damage from impaling yourself or falling on something, you know, that sort of thing?
Well, I think I'll go further than that. I think this is an assassination. I think the site of the wound tells us and the size of the wound. If we're imagining that I'm attacking you from the front,
yeah.
If I'm coming in and I'm trying to stab you here,
there'd be
your
blocks
hands are going to be all over the place. I'm going to be stabbing you here, here and here.
And certainly not up and under.
Certainly
like
not up
that.
and under, and there's liable to be cuts on the arms.
Yeah.
And
which we don't see.
Which we don't see.
Right.
We see a large irregular wound in the right hypochondrial region. Our assassin would approach from behind.
Right.
I step from the rear, hand over the mouth, hand goes up, I twist my body in, knife rams up, then spinning it around and moving it around as much as possible to do the maximum amount of damage before pulling the blade out and making a run for it.
The violence of the stab wound would have caused extreme trauma to the liver, leaving the lady in unbearable pain.
The reason it's be so nasty with the liver is it's an incredibly vascular organ. It's got so many blood vessels going through it to do the job that it does in the body. Now, here's our weapon. Now, you can imagine that if this is penetrating through the abdominal wall, goes up into the liver and lacerates here, and he gruddles it around and he does as much damage as he possibly can. And you can see just how vascular this liver is, and all these little bile ducts here and blood vessels. This would have been pumping out blood, you know, at the rate of knots.
Incredibly messy then. I mean, a lot of obvious signs.
A lot of blood and guts. The guts would have been prolapsing out the wound. There had been an enormous amount of blood.
So we have this graphic evidence for this vicious and violent and terminal assault on this 30-year-old woman. How long would it have been before she died? What would have been that sequence, do you think?
I would think it would just have been a matter of minutes. If the knife had penetrated even deeper and maybe taken out the major vessels, the back, death would have been, you know, in under a minute.
Through her mind must have been passing all of that family and relations and what's happened and why has it happened and just amazing fear.
I would think it would just be a world of pain.
With the shocking revelation that this mummy was violently murdered, the team now need to work out why someone would have wanted to kill the lady. In a search for more clues, Joanne and Jill are trawling through the Egyptian archives at the Literary and Philosophical Society Library in Newcastle. It has an extensive historical collection of books, periodicals and newspaper reports charting the birth of Egyptology as a science in the early 19th century. The Society hosted a public exhibition of the mummy when it first arrived in the country almost 200 years ago in 1821.
All right.
Oh, what you got there?
Oh, lots of treats for us to look at.
Excellent.
I've come across this one, which actually looked quite interesting. It's the reports, papers and catalogues of the Literary and Philosophical Society from Newcastle upon Tyne. 1820 to 1821, so that's coinciding with our date. But if we have a look through, it's quite a strange book in its nature. It's more like a scrapbook, actually, and I think if we just have a sort through...
Oh, yeah.
It's all...
handwriting.
Yeah. Very beautiful handwriting, but then you've got small articles.
Like newspaper clippings.
Like newspaper clippings.
But the book contains more than just newspaper articles. It's about to reveal a very big clue.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
A specimen of the cloth and cord taken from the mummy at the Literary and Philosophical Society, Newcastle on Tyne. I'll let you do the honours.
Oh, here we go. Very, very careful. What a result.
That's incredible.
Look at that. They have kept it in a book.
That's fabulous. That's
for over
fabulous.
200 years.
It's still very dusty.
It is,
actually.
yeah, let's close it up.
That is, oh, I've just breathed in back to our nap tank.
Nice.
What a discovery. You don't usually make archaeological discoveries in a library, do you?
From the start of the investigation, the team had no access to the mummy or interior of the coffin, so the finding of these linen samples is a huge breakthrough. Tiny fragments of the linen wrappings are cut off to be taken away for chemical analysis in Stephen's lab. The entire embalming process would take around 70 days and was performed by priests and embalmers who had a detailed knowledge of the human anatomy. Some organs would be removed to avoid decay. The body cavity was then packed with linen and spices before the body was finally wrapped in many layers of linen cloth. It's these linen wrappings that Stephen is analysing for their chemical fingerprint. Through GCMS, gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, he will be able to identify the chemical compounds present on the linen sample. The technique works on the principle that every chemical turns to a gas at a specific temperature. By gradually heating the microscopic samples taken from the linen, it should reveal the many hundreds of compounds it contains by examining the point at which they turn to gas. This will provide a chemical fingerprint of each of the components used to embalm the mummy.
Well, I've never sampled from a book before, but it's looking quite interesting. And what we actually have is a ruminant fat mixed with castor oil, balsam, a trace of coniferous and a trace of beeswax.
Is that all?
Yes, that's all.
So nothing particularly exotic?
No, not really, no.
Well, surely you'd expect a few more exotic commodities, given the status of this woman. That sounds rather like a collection of somewhat mundane ingredients.
There does seem to be a contradiction here between the materials used and the quality of the cartonnage we see. So I suppose the question we should think about is why. But you see here the combustion markers, which we see if something has been very strongly heated. So it perhaps suggests that someone was in a rush rather than doing a good job.
The GCMS test has not only identified that relatively cheap materials were used in this embalming, but also that the materials used had been severely overheated. This correlates with the results from the three-dimensional print of the mummy's head, displaying large amounts of decomposition, also indicating an incompetent and rushed embalming. This is highly suspicious, as the mummification of members of Egyptian high society was a precise and delicate art.
No, it just doesn't add up. The way she was mummified, the ingredients aren't what one would expect, given her apparent status. So what's going on?
I'm not quite sure, and possibly suggests something a little sinister.
The results of the chemical analysis indicate that the violent stabbing of Bakhten-Hor was just the first of a series of heinous crimes to be committed against this Egyptian woman. Professor Don Brothwell has been conducting further analysis. He's a leading physical anthropologist who specializes in paleopathology and in analyzing anomalies in the human anatomy. Using the three-dimensional data from the CT scan, he's identified a shocking new development.
Well, I've been looking through this area of the head and neck. So if we get these CT scans and move through from the face back into the throat area there. First of all, you can see the tongue in the jaw. And as you move back towards the neck region, nothing then in the throat area. There's no windpipe or anything there at all. They've slit under the tongue, removed the windpipe and so on, cleaned it up, and then inserted a large wad of, I would think, linen or something of that sort of. I mean, my feeling is that that was a decision which they took for some carefully thought out reason. And it might have, in fact, infringed the usual policies in terms of embalming.
So you're saying this was a premeditated move?
A part of their technique.
Yeah, which is something I've never seen in any other mummy. The complete removal of this part of the body.
Well,
it wasn't a standard part of the proceeding, was it?
Well, it is here.
Of all the human organs required after death, the throat was one of the most important for ancient Egyptians. According to their belief system, the deceased had to be able to speak his or her own name to the god Osiris, lord of the afterlife, to then be judged upon entry into the eternal paradise for the soul. In the eyes of ancient Egyptians, removal of the throat during mummification would prevent this sacred ritual from taking place.
Why take out the throat, the voice box, the very organs that are required, we know, to breathe again in the next world, to speak your name in the next world? Yeah. When she's there before the gods, she physically cannot speak her name before them. She can't identify herself. The cartonnage can't identify her. So it does give me some cause for concern, I think.
From the very beginning, this case of the sealed coffin looked almost impossible, as the mummy investigation team were denied any kind of access to the body. Against all odds, and through a combination of forensic excellence and old-fashioned detective work, they've built an incredible picture of who this woman was and how she died.
Based on her overbite, we can say with some confidence that she was likely of high status.
Well, from the chemistry, it's certainly possible that some sort of concealment was going on.
I'll go further than that. I think this is an assassination.
There's the family, there's the scribes, and there's the priesthood. But it could have been any of the three.
Without even laying a finger on the body, the mummy investigation team has discovered that this woman was murdered by a savage knife attack to the abdomen. She was robbed of her life, and even worse in Egyptian eyes, robbed of her passage into the next world. This was sabotaged by a hurried embalming, the removal of her throat, and the incorrect inscription of her title on the coffin. She was murdered in real life and in the afterlife.
It's been very gratifying for me that we've actually been able to make this person live again in a physical sense when we've had absolutely no access to the body.
I think what was interesting for me was the chemistry, because it really pointed to a rush job.
For several centuries, she's been called Backed Ho Nacked, when actually what she really was called is Backed in Ho. Merely saying that is to revive her soul.
One thing is clear. Someone with huge power and influence hated her so much.
She really did live in this world of pain for the awful few seconds before she passed away.
they killed her twice.
I know there's a fantastic story in there. You can just tell by looking.
You actually can't necessarily believe what you see.
The forensic process is very much crossing things off a list.
It does really scream out, you know, violence.
Mummies, the preserved remains of people who lived long ago. Everyone knows that the Egyptians embalmed their dead, but for thousands of years, South American bodies were also mummified. Today, these mummies give us a unique insight into the mysterious world they inhabited, the way it was before the Europeans arrived. With newly developed scientific techniques, we can now unlock the world they once lived in, find out who they were, and often how they died. Burnley's Townley Hall Museum in northwest England. Mummy investigator Dr. Joanne Fletcher is an Egyptologist, but her expertise covers mummies from around the globe.
Nice to meet you.
Hi,
Nice
Mike.
to meet you. Please come inside.
Excellent, thanks.
She's about to discover her latest challenge.
It came to us in 1913 and it was sent from Peru.
I must say, I'm very much drawn immediately to the sort of shape of this extraordinary skull. It's really, really elongated.
The one thing that did interest us was this hole in the skull.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, look. It's not just circular, it's quite square, actually. This hole is quite extraordinary, very, very graphic. It's sort of, it does really scream out, you know, violence. It's quite awful. Is this maybe a cause of death?
The body was donated to the museum by W.T. Taylor, a Burnley engineer who'd been working on hydroelectric projects in South America.
Have we any idea whereabouts in Peru Taylor obtained it?
Well, we think it was North Peru, but we're not absolutely sure.
In his notes, Taylor describes the mummy as Chachapoya, a culture known as the Cloud People because they lived high up in the cloud forest, a remote part of the highlands of northern Peru. They were a warrior race, famed for burying their dead on perilous rock ledges high up on cliff faces.
What exactly are our parameters for this investigation?
Well, we're quite happy for the mummy to go back to York.
It's very rare to have such unrestricted access to a mummy of this kind.
I am very, very certain we'll be able to give you some good results on this because, as you say, this was once an individual, a human being, and we owe it to them to find out all we can about its life and presumably its death.
York University's Mummy Investigation Team is a multidisciplinary group who've been pioneering new research into mummies for almost 10 years. Duncan Lees is the team's forensic archaeologist. He has the technology to make exact three-dimensional models of the mummies they study.
All I'm doing is creating millions, tens of millions of accurately surveyed points.
Jill Scott is an Egyptologist who also specialises in the study of ancient bodies. She's the main archive researcher on the project.
You don't only have that out of war wounds, you know, trauma to the skull, you also have it through ritual means as well.
Stephen Buckley is an archaeological chemist. He has an international reputation for unlocking secrets hidden in ancient mummification techniques.
It's very much going into the unknown.
At this early stage of the investigation, the team already have an advantage. They can work on the actual mummy here at their base, and they've nicknamed him Cloud Man.
I am so excited about this mummy, and I'm sure you'll all agree it's a fantastic example of mummification. It's wonderful.
Mummies like Cloud Man can be preserved either by natural or artificial means. The accepted wisdom is that the vast majority of Peruvian mummies were naturally preserved, either by being dried in cool air or in hot, dry sand. Our team now has the tools to determine whether this body was also embalmed.
You're drawn, aren't you, immediately to an obviously unusual feature. I've never seen a skull like that. That is just such an extraordinary shape.
They think it's Chachapoya.
I know nothing about the Chachapoya people. I mean, you're talking about mountain regions. Is this why he's called the Cloud Man? I mean, what do we know about them?
They are an incredible culture, really, because they were famed throughout ancient Peru for their warlike abilities. They were a pugilistic race.
So, as a Chachapoya, Cloud Man would have been one of a race of warriors who lived between 800 and 1470 AD. They were brutally suppressed by the Incas, who stopped at nothing to expand their territory. But even in the midst of battle, the Incas were said to admire the strength and stature of the Chachapoya.
We know that they were famous for being very tall.
Tall? That doesn't seem to fit with this, because even though he's very tightly bound and in this fetal position, the length of the individual limbs is not that great.
Are we looking at a young adult here?
Right, okay.
So it could be a younger member of society. So it's something to explore.
Stephen wants to get to the bottom of why Cloud Man's skin is so pale.
For me, I'd be interested to know whether there's actually anything on the skin, whether we've got it naturally preserved or whether there's something that's been applied that might be affecting the appearance.
There is an extraordinary amount of cord and binding on the mummy.
These robes are something else. I mean, far too many to have been simply used to fasten the hands to the head and bind the legs up.
Cloud Man's hole in the head will also be a key area for investigation.
Is it the fatal wound? I really would like to get to the bottom of what that hole suggests in terms of this individual's life and his death.
Joanne has another resource for the team to work with.
This is a fur-bound journal from W.T. Taylor, who was the person that actually brought the mummy back in the first place. Letters, photographs, his notes and maps. I'd very much like you
I was going to say, I'd be really interested to have a look through this.
Besides having the book to work on, the team will also have to decipher the clues that remain on Cloud Man as they try to find out exactly who he was and how he died. This could be the most exciting case the team have ever taken on. Forensic archaeologist Duncan Lees has begun work building a virtual model of the mummy. He wants to stretch Cloud Man out of his fetal position using laser scans to give the team their first look at the whole body.
All I'm doing is creating millions, tens of millions of accurately surveyed points, accurately measured points across the surface. And the software allows you to look at that.
The laser sends out a beam onto the mummy, and by constantly measuring the way it bounces back, it's able to produce an incredibly accurate three-dimensional model.
On this mummy, you've got this sort of pale white matte finish, and so every single nuance, every single ripple within the tissue, all of the cords, all of the damage in this extraordinary shaped skull will show up really clearly. It'll be an absolutely beautiful data set.
The beam and receptor are so precise, the model they generate is accurate to within 20 microns. That's 20 millionths of a meter, less than the thickness of an eyelash. Once the 3D scan is complete, Duncan should be able to stretch the mummy out to see how tall he was and what sort of build he had in life. Historical researcher Jill Scott has been reading the journal that Burnley engineer W.T. Taylor brought back along with Cloudman from his travels in Peru. This should be able to paint a picture of where Cloudman came from and who he was.
There's loads of interesting stuff in here, but it's only sort of when you get towards the end that I'm finding any particular references that are useful to us for the investigation for this mummy.
Taylor left Burnley in 1910 and spent 3 years in Peru. Over that time, he kept this journal, which reveals a keen interest in mummies and Inca weaponry.
And then it actually talks about him finding this mummy as well and sort of what he had to do to get there. On the early morning, I, with 2 others, made preparations for entering the deep pit. On several parts of the passage, we encountered several petrified mummies, human skulls and human bones. As much as this guy details everything here, we don't really get any sort of concept of provenance, because all it mentioned was the fact that they've entered into mountains, down into a ravine, and that there's a hole which is about 40 feet deep. So that could be anywhere. We can't go to a map and pinpoint specifically and say that that is where that mummy was found.
Given the lack of a precise location, Jill is going to need a Peruvian expert to help establish Cloudman's place of origin. The investigation has already produced its first results. Duncan has animated the data from his laser scan.
Well, I've been working on the laser scan data. I've put it into this visualization package.
Yeah.
It means that we can take this sort of virtual tour of the mummy very quickly.
He's articulated the limbs of what he's pretty certain now is an adult, then taken account of any shrinkage over the centuries.
But you want to see something cool? We have done some work on it. So what we've done is taken the mummy and, as I said, broken it down into the component pieces of an articulated adult human. So the arms, the legs, the head and everything else. And what we've done is run this animation which shows the mummy moving from its fetal position into its standing position.
Oh, that's fabulous!
And looking at you at the end. We've got a definite height here now. We've got a 142, 1.42 metres, so just under 5 foot in height.
5 foot?
Yeah, well, yeah, not very big. You told me these are people famed for their pale skin, but also their height.
Their stature. They were noted for their height, for their stature. 5 foot?
Yeah, just under 5 foot, actually. 1
so
metre 42.
Literally, what?
Yeah, if I'd brought a tape measure, I could show you, but certainly only up to your sort of shoulder height.
Oh.
The Chachapoya were known for being tall, so the revelation that Cloudman was only 142 centimetres cast doubt on Taylor's claim that he was Chachapoya. With his ethnic origin in question, the team looked to chemistry to find some concrete answers. Archaeological chemist Stephen Buckley specialises in the chemical analysis of mummies. Using pioneering techniques, he works with minute samples of the mummy to establish where it's from, how old it is, and how it came to be preserved. The method he uses is GCMS, gas chromatography mass spectrometry. This complex testing process can identify minute quantities of chemical compounds that have come into contact with the body. Stephen is also taking samples which he'll send off for carbon-14 analysis to establish a date for Cloudman. Peruvian mummies can be anything up to 7,000 years old, so this will be another crucial clue to Cloudman's identity. Based on the mummy's pale skin, Stephen has a hunch that Cloudman was artificially preserved, and if he can find evidence for this, it'll be groundbreaking.
Well, they're usually assumed to be naturally mummified. And looking at this, there's nothing to give us any clues. But what interests me is just to see whether the chemistry can actually provide any answers on that one.
Artificial mummification was extremely rare in ancient Peru and would certainly point to a high-status individual. Joanne also wants Stephen to do paleodietary analysis to learn more about Cloudman from the food he ate, which, if he's from the mountains, should consist of high-altitude crops, traces of which can be found in hair, bone and body parts.
Now, I have to say, I've looked very closely and I can't see any evidence of hair or, in fact, fingernails or toenails, which is quite unusual for a South American mummy. So, if we wanted to undertake paleodietary analysis, for instance, how would we go about that?
Well, I think that could be a problem, but I suppose another option is perhaps to look for the, see whether the stomach or the intestines have survived and actually analyse the contents there.
Fortunately, the team has one of the world's leading paleopathologists on hand. Professor Don Brothwell combines his vast medical knowledge with a profound expertise in ancient remains. Stevens asked Don to cut into and sample what remains of Cloudman's internal organs to see if he can find out about diet and evidence of possible toxins in the body. But it's not an easy task.
There is so much decomposition, we will have to sample fairly extensively. I am pleased that we have permission to do that.
To find out where best to operate, Don conducts his initial examination with an endoscope, normally used for exploratory medical work.
Well, I've heard of rump steaks, but rump endoscopy is new to me.
Don is looking for the remains of the intestinal tract, which will give the best information about diet, possible toxins in the system, or infection.
There's some structures that are more complete, but it's extremely damaged and ragged inside.
Don will cut into what he's found of the mummy's soft tissue to obtain samples for Stephen to analyse. The trick is to distinguish between what is useful for the investigation and what is totally decayed matter.
It's just like old shoe leather in parts. That could be a part of the intestinal wall. What we need is a sort of mini Hoover to bring it out of things.
Yes, true.
They are also hoping to extract useful materials from Cloudman's head.
You going for brain?
Well, I'm going for what's left in terms of tissue, which may be brainic. Well, there's fly pupae there, I think, as well.
As the team wait for the samples to be processed, they concentrate on establishing Cloudman's cultural context. Because ancient Peru is outside the team's direct area of expertise, Jill Scott is meeting Dr. Nicholas Saunders, an anthropologist specialising in pre-Columbian Peru, here at the Bankfield Museum, Halifax.
Take a look at this. Now, the striking thing that we've all noticed in our discussion is the cranial disfiguration. So, what can you tell us about that?
Yes, it looks weird to us, but in fact it was absolutely normal in ancient South America. Many civilizations deformed the cranial bones from birth. So we know that sometimes this was done for ethnic identity, tribal identity, and sometimes it was done as a sign of beauty, and it was also done in terms of a sign of social status.
The unnaturally long and pointed shape of Cloudman's head is clearly a result of cranial modification, examples of which have been found on skulls all over the world.
How did they do it?
Basically, they bound it with cloth and sometimes with wooden boards, back and front or on the side, depending on the exact shape they wanted.
Right.
But for them, it was an aesthetic ideal. It was a thing of beauty.
For a 2-year period starting shortly after birth, Cloudman would have had his head tightly bound whilst his skull was still malleable to shape it into this extraordinary form. The effort this procedure would have taken suggests Cloudman was definitely an elite member of his society. Working with the photographs, Nick has found other interesting clues to Cloudman's identity.
We know from ancient Peru that prisoners of war and maybe shamans who cast inappropriate spells were often tied by the rope, tied by the body, roping one person to another, and sometimes then were sacrificed. So there's an intriguing possibility that we can't prove at the moment that this individual might have been a prisoner of war.
Perhaps Cloudman, bound with so much rope, died in captivity. To explore this possibility and to pinpoint more about Cloudman's identity, Jill's hoping Nick will unlock the secrets in Taylor's diary. His first analysis reveals some disturbing discrepancies.
The conditions that he found these mummies in really relates to the coast, rather than up in the mountains and the cloud forest where they may have come from, but I don't think they did. Examples, for instance, would be he talks about going 40 feet down on a rope into a pit to find these mummies. If he was in Chachapoyas region, he'd have to be scaling a cliff for 100 feet in order to reach them.
The Chachapoya theory looks even more in doubt.
He talks that they're surrounded by sand and soil, which is clearly not going to be the case in Chachapoyas. And he also makes a reference similarly to the mud bricks that surround some of these mummies. Again, you find that all the time on the south coast where mud bricks are preserved. In the Chachapoyas, constant rainy area that it is, they wouldn't last 5 minutes.
Nick also points out that ancient Chachapoya territory was at least 200 miles away from Lima, where Taylor was based.
I think it's much more likely, in fact, that he probably went for a day or 2 days around the Lima area, maybe into the foothills of the Andes, and with a guide found and located these things and took them back. So not quite as heroic, I think, and so therefore definitely not Chachapoya.
This confirms the team's suspicions, first sparked when Duncan's scan revealed the mummy's short stature. From the description in Taylor's journal, it looks like his expeditions never even got close to Chachapoya territory.
I think what we're probably looking at is a small coastal culture, society, maybe around about 1000, 1200, 1300 AD. And it's the same kind of style of mummification that these people do along the coast.
This is the investigation's first major breakthrough. The evidence suggests that Cloudman is not Chachapoya, as they originally believed. He's probably from the coast, not the mountains, a totally different culture. This isn't the only development in the investigation. Stevens just had a major setback. None of the samples Don took have provided any dietary information. This means the team's drawn a complete blank on diet, which could have pinned down a location for Cloudman. But he does have other important new findings. The carbon-14 results are in, and a date has emerged for Cloudman. 1100 AD, right when anthropologist Nick Saunders suspected. This date places Cloudman firmly at a time when no single culture predominated in Peru. Instead, small warring tribes fought each other for territory in a power vacuum. And given Cloudman lived at such a violent time, the team need to test Nick's suggestion that the excessive rope bindings around Cloudman indicates that he was a prisoner of war who died in captivity. Duncan's been working with his laser images to separate out the rope from the rest of the body.
I know this looks a bit suspect, but there is method to the madness, I'm sure. The thing is that we've got some very good measurement data from the laser scanning now and looking at the photography. We've got a dimension for that rope length. We've got just over 2.5 meters of rope that we can measure. And there are areas that are occluded, areas that we can't see, that must add about another sort of 0.5 meter, maybe a bit more than that, onto the length.
Okay.
And it's all very well to look at that virtually. I think we need to get an idea of what that sort of length of rope looks like really, and how these bindings might work. I'd hoped that you'd help me with the binding side of things and we could see what was going on.
If these 3 meters of rope are enough for Duncan to tie up Jill, this could support the theory that Cloudman was a prisoner.
Yeah, so we've got the knees and the hands were wrapped.
Okay.
You see, you've already got hardly any rope.
No, I mean, to me, this seems to be the sort of binding that would have kept the body in position in death. You know, literally to keep it
in
like
that
this.
fetal
Not,
position.
Yeah, not for anything else to me.
Although 3 meters of rope did initially seem like the substantial amount needed to bind a prisoner, Duncan's experiment has ruled out Nick Saunders' theory that Cloudman was a bound captive. The team decide to refocus the investigation and find out what secrets the body itself might be hiding. They take Cloudman to be X-rayed. The X-ray highlights Cloudman's cranial modification beautifully, but can it reveal any evidence of age, injury, or battle scars? Armed with the images, Joanne meets up with paleopathologist Don Brothwell to see what information he can derive from them.
And that one, of course, you've got.
The teeth aren't particularly worn. Third molars are there. I think it's probably a very young adult, but an adult rather than a teenager.
Joanne wants to determine exactly what caused the hole in Cloudman's head.
I don't know, my initial thoughts, is it a war wound? So I was wondering if the sort of the nature of the hole might back that up.
One's immediate thought is it's ancient surgery. But the other possibility, of course, is, I mean, looking at it, you've got to think of other things. Infection can produce holes in the head. Tumours can produce holes in the head.
Joanne is not convinced and wants to know more about battle injuries.
Would the sort of impact of maybe a slingshot, high-velocity slingshots on a skull such as this have resulted in the shape we can see here, do you think?
I doubt it, but you should certainly consider that as well. The thing is, if I hit you on the head with a hammer, then what you get is a sort of compressed fracture. Your skull collapses around the area where the hammer's impacting on your head. But you still get the bone there. And the only way you would get a hole is if, in fact, if your ancient surgeon then trims away the compressed bone. So
would that be a possibility, though? Could we have somebody that was brought from the battlefield, and then these surgeons that we know were very sophisticated, then perform some sort of surgery on this individual?
A common form of cranial surgery in ancient Peru was trepanation, the surgical removal of a portion of the skull to relieve pressure from a wound or chronic pain.
It would be interesting to try and find out the various ways these surgeries could be performed. How can we go about trying to replicate how this was done? Because we really need to get to the bottom of what caused it. What do you think would be the best way to do it?
Experimental work, don't you think?
So far, the team knows that Cloudman was a high-status young male from coastal Peru who died young in his early 20s. Now, to pin down cause of death, they'll need to undertake 2 practical experiments. To test Don's preferred theory, they'll reproduce ancient head surgery. To put Joanne's theory to the test, they'll need to simulate a battle injury. Ancient Peru was a violent place, full of warring cultures fighting terrible battles. They attacked each other with axes, maces, and slingshots, all common weapons. Peruvian expert Nick Saunders has a theory about which weapon might have caused Cloudman's injury, based on the size and the shape of the hole.
This is a slingshot. These things were used as slingshots, but they were also worn around the head. It should be worn into war and then taken off and used in fact, perhaps to cause a dreadful damage and wound in somebody else's head. As well, which may be what we have in the mummy.
With a possible weapon established, the team's in a position to try to recreate the mummy's injury. The results might reveal what caused the mysterious hole in Cloudman's head. Lead investigator Joanne Fletcher is at Flamborough Beach, North Yorkshire. She won't be satisfied until she's either confirmed or eliminated the possibility that the hole in the head is a war wound. Tom Richardson works at the Leeds Armoury and is an expert in ancient weapons technology. Joanne set him the challenge of recreating the mummy's injury.
I sling at about 30 metres a second.
Oh, that's not bad.
That's quite quick.
Yeah.
That's quicker than fast bowlers in cricket bowl at. And of course they bounce the ball on the pitch before it hits the batsman.
So we're actually looking at something that could do a lot of damage. I mean, something going that quick. I mean, it's sort of well, like an ancient version of a bullet from a gun, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very difficult to sling in a non-lethal way.
To test the lethal power of a slingshot, they've brought along a pig's head to be the target. Joanne also has a speed gun to determine just how fast Tom can sling at. They take their positions. If Tom can hit the pig's head with sufficient power, he could prove that a slingshot might have caused the mummy's injury.
Oh, 65.
Tom's getting readings of 65 miles an hour or 30 meters a second, but he's still way off target.
Of course, the problem with all this is accuracy.
Well, how would they have actually deployed these in ancient times?
Rather than having a single slinger sniping away, you have to think of a whole group of, say, 500 slingers raining stones down on a whole group of people.
So kind of like aerial bombardment?
Exactly so.
Finally, he's starting to home in on the pig's head.
Got it.
Although the slingshot hit the head at 65 miles an hour, it didn't even pierce the skin. Right now, Joanne's battle injury theory is not looking very convincing. Meanwhile, forensic archaeologist Duncan Lees wants to explore how ancient surgery might have created the injury by trepanning a pig skull. Royal Navy Surgeon Commander Mike Edwards is particularly well qualified to conduct this procedure.
The last time I did anything closely approaching this was in a tent just outside Basra in 2003. I was called to operate on a Royal Marine who'd been hit by some shrapnel.
Right.
Back in ancient Peru, people were also being trepanned for battle injuries.
One of the main reasons for doing it may well have been trauma.
Right.
It would usually be blunt trauma from clubs and slingshots, and the rate of skull fracture would be high.
So in essence, it's a sort of battlefield medicine. Okay.
But there would be also non-traumatic reasons for doing it, say, for relief of epilepsy.
Okay.
If they had a brain tumour that was growing and they had increasing headaches, feeling might have been to let the evil spirits out.
People have been trepanned in countless cultures across the world since at least 7000 BC.
I think there are even modern extrapolations of this with lunatics that think they can reach heaven by opening their skull to the atmosphere.
It's quite likely that many of those trepanned in ancient Peru were also seeking spiritual awakening rather than relief from a head injury. For this experiment, Mike will be using a replica of an ancient surgical instrument, one that might have been used in 12th century Peru.
Talk me through the tools that you brought then, Mike.
Now this is an obsidian blade.
Okay, so that's volcanic glass.
Volcanic glass.
And it seems incredibly sharp down the edge here.
Oh, it is incredibly sharp, and I would say this would equate to something like a scalpel, which we have here.
Right. Okay.
So we can see that, in fact, this may even be sharper than the scalpel.
Yeah.
If Cloudman's injury was caused by trepanation, this kind of obsidian blade is probably what they would have used to cut into his head. Mike wants to use this tool to see if he can recreate the same kind of hole in a pig's head.
I'm just going to hope that this is sharp enough. Oh, fantastic. Once we're through the first layer of skin, it does go through a lot easier. So it needs a bit of pressure. If I'd made this cut,
so if this was alive,
this would be bleeding like anything.
Okay.
I think it would be possible to lose about 4 pints of blood from a severe scalp laceration. It's absolutely amazing.
In ancient Peru, there's evidence that red-hot metal would have been used to sear the blood vessels and stem the bleeding.
I'm just going to make a cut here now.
If he didn't pass out from the pain, Cloudman would have been conscious throughout the operation.
I've scored in a circular way around here, you can see, and I've just gone through the outer table of the skull. I'm feeling I'm just getting to the inside, and my plan is to keep doing this until I get through the skull. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to go so deep that I go into the brain. This is just great. What a great tool. I don't think I could get such a good result even with a modern chisel or a scalpel.
After 45 minutes, Mike's close to penetrating the pig's skull.
This is going to come very soon.
I can see movement on the trypan piece there.
I think there is most definitely movement there, and if I just lift that away, oh, that is fantastic.
So look, we've got the trypan piece, and then the hole in the brain underneath, but with no damage. No, it looks to me like it's all intact.
Using a Stone Age tool, Mike has managed to trypan a skull without even damaging the membrane surrounding the brain. The team has now explored what might have caused Cloudman's head injury in 2 ways. Before the results can be evaluated, the 2 damaged pig skulls need to be X-rayed. While Joanne and Duncan have been experimenting with pigs' heads, Stephen's been working through the thousands of pages of chemical data generated by the samples he's taken from the mummy. To conclude the experiments, Joanne returns to Don Brothwell to see if the X-ray evidence supports her theory that the hole was originally a war wound.
The surgery here, and then down here we've got the results of the slingshot.
I think your slingshot experiments, you might have damaged the skull just very superficially. Well, I think your experimental work here with trephination is beautiful and convinces me actually that what you have here is trephination without any doubt.
Don's conclusive: trepanation caused the hole in Cloudman's head.
So, wasn't my day on the beach completely wasted?
Your day on the beach was lovely. I hope the weather was fine and you paddled, but as far as this is concerned, forget it.
Do you think this was successful surgery?
Oh, certainly, because on the X-ray you can see that there's a lot of healing around the hole.
So we can say this wasn't immediately fatal?
Oh, no.
And it wasn't the cause of death? No. So this individual lived, how long would you say?
Well, it's so well healed up that you can't really sort of predict how long, but he lived many months.
Cloudman survived his surgery, but given he died at such a young age, could having such major surgery have left him open to infection? Far from confirming cause of death, the team's experiments have only raised more questions. There are no clues as to why Cloudman was trepanned. Was it because he suffered from severe head pains or epilepsy? Or did he, as people have done throughout the centuries, open his head up voluntarily to be closer to his gods? Joanne has called a team meeting.
If there's no cause of death, it's a question of where do we go from here, really?
I mean, I don't really share the pessimism because, I mean, the forensic process is very much crossing things off a list. You know, there are very few things that you can say for sure. There's a lot of things that you can cross off, and the work that we've done so far is crossing things off that list.
I know there's a fantastic story in there. You can just tell by looking at him. He's a fantastic mummy, and I so want to do this justice. So I think maybe I am sort of being a little despairing too early on. Yeah, pessimistic. Yeah.
The science, there's so much more science still to do. So much that we haven't looked at, glaringly obvious things in front of us. I mean, there must be answers already coming out of the science that you're doing, Steve, as well. What sort of stage are we at with your stuff?
The mummy has been smoked.
Really?
So as part of the mummification process?
Yeah.
This is a major revelation. Stephen's hunch was spot on. He's found out that the mummy's pale skin colour was produced artificially. The body was smoked as a method of preservation.
There's nicotine there with tobacco leaf, it would appear. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty shattering, actually.
So mummified, certainly. A surprise perhaps, but
an unfair pessimism
surprise
as well. I think
I know.
The scientists will come up with the right stuff.
Yeah,
don't you worry.
That is fantastic news. This is really big, isn't it? I mean, that's sort of the first time I know of this definitely being found on a mummy.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
Well, that's the understatement of the year, isn't it?
Artificial mummification in Peru is virtually undocumented. This has to suggest that Cloudman was a member of the elite. Smoking the body would have helped to preserve it by keeping out insects. But obtaining the tobacco for this procedure would have been a massive task. It must have been one of the rarest and most precious commodities, since the nearest tobacco was grown in the Amazon basin at least 400 miles away. It would have required weeks of travelling to bring it back to Cloudman's coastal region. As the results come in, Stephen realises that he's on the verge of a major scientific discovery. He's found chemical substances which show that not only was Cloudman smoked, he was also embalmed.
On the head you have a plant wax, which is actually very characteristic, and it comes from candelilla wax from Mexico. But in contrast, on the legs you've got an insect wax, which is unusual.
Cloudman's legs were treated with insect wax, his body with a balsam tree resin, and his head with a plant wax, first and foremost as preservatives to prevent water and fungi from entering and destroying the body. But what makes Stephen's results so intriguing is that these substances weren't readily available in coastal Peru. The candelilla wax found on the head was derived from a small shrub which is still used today in beauty products. It was sourced an amazing 2,000 miles away on another continent, Mexico in North America. Using these highly prized products on his body means Cloudman must have been an extremely important person. Such lavish attention suggests the equivalent of a state funeral.
If I was asked to speculate on who this individual might be, from the science, certainly, this is a high-status individual. He's been treated with substances coming from really long distances, so this would have been a very expensive process. So this is someone who had a great deal of wealth and status, and was someone quite special.
To understand what these substances symbolized in ancient Peruvian burial rituals, Stephen needs to consult a specialist. He sends his lab results to the team's Peruvian expert, Nick Saunders. Stephen's scientific discoveries are startling, but won't fully unlock the secret of Cloudman's role in life unless they're put into their proper cultural context. Stephen's faith has paid off. Anthropologist Nick Saunders has examined the chemical findings and emailed some astounding conclusions.
There's plenty to look at. One thing I notice is the recipe you describe is really a microcosm of the herbal world, each element representing a physical and symbolically important substance.
That's pretty good. Yes, look, it shows us that these ancient peoples had a philosophy of the body where different substances in varying combinations were regarded as symbolically appropriate for the head and legs. That's exactly right, isn't it? That's exactly what the science is telling us.
Yeah.
The embalming process clearly had huge symbolic significance. Each part of Cloudman was deliberately treated with a different substance. His head with plant wax, his body with tree resin, and his legs with insect wax.
The presence of insect wax on our mummy might indicate he could have been a shaman or a sorcerer who used these creatures for curing illness in life and was now in turn protected in death by their spiritual essence. Brilliant.
Yeah.
This is great. This is the hard science coming together with cultural history.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see the science making sense.
This is a huge breakthrough. The evidence suggests that Cloudman was a shaman, a tribal witch doctor who cast spells and communicated with the spirit world. Insects had a divine quality in ancient Peru as bringers of disease. They were also used in preventative medicine. It's possible a shaman would have consumed certain insects with psychedelic properties as part of his ritual communication with the gods. And there's more.
The nicotine in the body and mass may have been partly from the use of it during life, so if he was a shaman using this stuff, but also from the mummy's post-mortem ritual treatment deemed appropriate for a shaman. There are even tobacco shamans in Venezuela today. A tobacco shaman, what an amazing concept. That's fantastic.
It's excellent. I mean, I was sure of the science of the chemistry, but it's actually nice to see that this actually does make some sense.
Stephen's discoveries, both on tobacco smoking and Cloudman's chemical embalming, will reshape scientific opinion on South American mummies. After weeks of investigation, the team have finally established who Cloudman was in life. A shaman, a high-status and powerful religious figure. This was a man born around 1100 AD in the coastal region of Peru, close to where the capital city of Lima stands today. At birth, his head was bound into this extraordinary shape, like the other elite members of his society.
Sometimes it was done as a sign of beauty, and it was also done in terms of a sign of social status.
But Cloudman had a greater destiny than his contemporaries. He only lived to his early 20s.
I think it's probably a very young adult, but an adult rather than a teenager.
But in his short life, it seems he rose to be a shaman, a holy man with a direct link to the spirit world. And perhaps he was trepanned to open up his head to commune with his gods.
Feeling might have been to let the evil spirits out.
We'll never be sure how he died, but given the lack of other trauma on his body, it's likely he died from an illness or infection, possibly as a long-term side effect of his trepanning. At death, his high status was reflected in the extraordinary care with which his body was preserved, with waxes brought from thousands of miles away.
This would have been a very expensive process. So this is someone who had a great deal of wealth.
So we've gone from the cloud man to tobacco shaman.
Thanks to the embalming skills of his community, he has not decayed like almost all his contemporaries. This expert and rare preservation has allowed the team to breathe life back into this individual and unravel the secrets sealed in his mummified body for almost 1,000 years.